Hello, everyone. So, how messed up was that movie? Good ending, though. Happy-ish ending, as happy as it could really get. So, I do have a couple questions for you guys that I'd love to hear the answers to. So, one, how many of you guys suspected the little boy, Robbie, Preston's son, of being the one to turn him in and turn his mother in? And my other question for you guys is, what's the difference between being intuitive and being emotional in this? So send me the answer to those two questions for participation points. And also note that this is an option for your final to write an extra credit paper about. So if you write me one page about equilibrium and include it in addition to your final paper, I will give you an extra point on your final. So I hope that helps you guys out. In the meantime, I am going to read you my Toolman essay, and of course, I will likely stop and comment on things as I go through to show you guys how those terms, which I know is the hardest part of this release, to figure out where to put those terms in there and how to say them, and hopefully this helps. Have faith. Without logic comes mayhem. Emotion is the root of violence. We kill out of love, out of jealousy, out of greed, out of mercy, for vengeance, and for justice. We hurt others on pure whim, yet a lack of emotions can be as detrimental as being led by them, especially when pharmaceutical companies exploit our insecurities for their own monetary gain, as is strikingly evident in America with the cost of prescription medications to treat all magnitudes of our ill ease, with living beyond mere survival. Equilibrium claims that emotion without rational control is the most dangerous attribute of humanity. So notice how I set up context with emotion. That's going to be the main focus of what I talk about throughout, and how that affects, how a lack of emotion affects pretty much all other aspects of society, which I think is their main point. So that's why it's context. And also notice how claims is a part of my thesis. Okay, so our emotions are not fixed. They're flexible and based on our interpretations. We have within our power to control our feelings and reactions to any given situation. We are in control unless we're not. Cleric John Preston's journey through the awakening of his suppressed emotions supports this idea. His essential calm exterior, as a part of the extreme police force present in the society, is wholly reliant on his medication, Prosium. However, the film foreshadows his explosive emotions with clues, such as his reaction to the loss of his wife, both in the present of the plot and in flashback, his passion for his job, and his mercy for his partner. One might also argue that he shows signs of righteousness and pride. Basically, even with the help of a powerful, mood-altering drug, Preston either lacks control over his own emotions, or he merely cultivates the accepted practices in order to conform. So you notice how I use supports. I didn't really summarize, but I was able to still reference the plot of the movie to give greater context and connection. In fact, the Grammaton clerics are the warriors against emotions, whose sole task is to seek out and eradicate the true source of man's inhumanity to man, his ability to feel, or so says the narrator in the beginning of the movie. Thus, John Preston's all-star cleric role is to destroy humanity with the proper amount of sympathy and lack of regret. No wonder he cracks by the end, resembling the fight of a war-torn soldier hell-bent on doing what's humane rather than following orders. As the fog clears, and Preston begins to truly feel the loss he's buried and empathize with the enemy, his fellow man, his awareness makes him the dystopic hero. This is ironic, as earlier action shows Preston murdering his own partner to abide by the rules of the state, who likely had been the Underground's previous rebel savior. Essentially, Preston killed his predecessor to gain his own ability to rule himself, foreshadowing the assassination of Father. As happy endings go, this ranks relatively high, as the hero neither dies nor conforms, as is typical in a dystopic text, which warrants our common belief that when a dictator is defeated, the newly freed people are better off. Unfortunately, this is so atypical, as revolutions replace old dictators with new ones and small variances in tyrannical rules, that has become what is known as the full circle revolution. So notice warrant is referencing something that we commonly believe, and I've got that new term in there. The revolution, the full circle revolution, also demonstrates how the peace, as the state propagated it, created a society passive to the acts of war inflicted upon themselves and their neighbors. As this has happened in more instances than one wants to count, the actions of rebel heroes, like Hitler, who began his political career scolding a professor at an early Nazi Party meeting, His charisma gained his eventual leadership, paired with traditional campaigning and violent terror tactics, backing the full circle revolution trope with his heavy propaganda and control of the media, concentration camps, child indoctrination, and straight violence, reaffirming that no regime overturned with violence is likely to bear better results. And I don't know if you guys knew that originally Hitler was seen as the hero before he became the bad dictator, just to clarify that. Beyond the violence, propaganda and indoctrination prove as the primary threat for the society. The reinforcement of Libria's ideals fills every opportune place, like the blimp hovering above the gray city, on buildings, in the town square, in each citizen's home, and at work. In fact, the ruler's voice narrates over the viewer's initial view of the city after the first scene of extreme police violence. Interestingly, within their propaganda, they make direct references to the past in which they hope not to repeat. As Father states, Librians, there is a disease in the heart of man. Its symptom is hate. Its symptom is anger. Its symptom is rage. Its symptom is war. The disease is human emotion. On screens around the city show images of violence, police brutality, Hitler in front of his army, Stalin looking over his people, the famous event of a lone man standing before a tank in Tiananmen Square, and the atomic bomb. These quickly transform into an advertisement for their true oppressor, a small golden vial of prosium, their so-called cure for human emotions. So notice how I'm creating connections back and forth between what they did in the movie and what we've done and what they're referencing of our actual history to get to back to the emotions and how they're controlling emotions to control the people. Because fear is an excellent motivator when you can't, eliminate emotions. Fear is the next best. To emphasize how this drug has unified these people, citizens stop to inject themselves as Father watches over them. They do so in unison, similar to the way they walk at the same pace, dress in dull colors, and ignore the fact that one of their own is singled out by a child to be hauled off as a sense offender, who will be processed. Father states, "We are our own conscience now." As an older man is grabbed by 2 armed guards, yet no one gives this act a cursory glance. The inaction of the masses and authority of the young boy demonstrates how indoctrinated Librians are. Besides, they cannot react if they do not feel. Other instances make this indoctrination obvious, and many of them focus on children, much like Hitler Youth, Boy and Girl Scouts, and Sunday School. Instilling belief in minors is not only easier, but the results are stronger and longer lasting, especially when paired with a mood neutralizer like prosium. This is why Preston's son, Robbie, calls Preston by his first name, rather than Dad, Daddy, or Father. Cultural programming has created a rift between parents and children because this makes it easier for children to turn in their parents for breaking laws. However, Librian children have the added advantage. They don't have to worry over feeling guilty about their betrayal. Okay, so notice how I'm taking, once again, cultural references to support why they're doing what they're doing in the movie. Not necessarily to the same outcome, but the same ultimate outcome, the same messages, but the similar tactics of it. Okay. Conformity is the ultimate goal of the drugs, violence, propaganda, and indoctrination, and the pressure to conform is ever present. As Preston begins to lose control over his emotions, Father preaches on in the background. He appears to be one of them in his black uniform, hair slicked back, and his workstation remains identical to every other station around him. The pressure to differentiate himself shows in his rearranging his desk, and Father says that shrugging off individuality, replacing it with sameness and unity, allows people to lead identical lives, to create confidence and certainty. Yet, this isn't possible. No matter how exact one's actions are, one's life will never be exactly the same as another's. Although common sense counters Father's argument, a lack of emotions does eliminate the majority of differences we would experience. However, emotions exasperate the sameness of Preston's experiences seem to cycle with his former partner, Partridge. They repeat the same actions and have the same exchanges with their partners as they work through understanding their own emotions. For example, they both say, they miss things sometimes. I'll take it in myself, make sure it gets done properly. When they each take a book from a crime scene, and, I pay it gladly, when addressing the high price of negative emotions that come with the positive ones. To further rebut that unity relies on conformity and lack of emotion, the true father, DuPont, and his new right-hand man, Brandt, demonstrate highly volatile emotions. DuPont is known to act without prosium, and one can argue that Brandt does as well. But even without Brandt acting on his emotions, he continues to display them, which leans to his tolerance for the drug as he mentions that he needs to adjust his dose. This duo exudes pride, rage, aggression, arrogance, competition, and paranoia, amongst others. The comparison qualifies Equilibrium's claim that emotion needs rational control to maintain safety, as all emotions can endanger humanity. Emotions are a complex paradox, and the leader of the underground resistance, Uric, sums this notion up nicely, that without restraint or control, emotion is chaos. The difference is that when one wants to feel, one can, but some of us have to forego that luxury so others can have it. This is supported in several moments of the movie. Preston's drive, even for freedom, comes at a violent cost. He might have saved Mary for a time, and tried to save several other sex offenders, but he hurt and killed a great many more in the process, like the man in the library, whom he shoved onto a table and hurled through a bookcase. Smaller moments also contribute to his violent nature as he struggles with his emotions, like when he runs through public, hitting and knocking others over. The dichotomy of over-control and a lack of control shows itself in America. Prescription drugs consume the masses, and we lean on these drugs to fix all of our problems, much like the Librians do. In fact, as of 2011, more than 1 in 10 people in the United States were taking an antidepressant, which increased 400% between 2005 and 2008. Many believe that antidepressants are effective, and others say that the benefits have been overstated to increase sales. Either way, pharmaceuticals come at a cost in their side effects. For example, Prozac, presumably the drug Equilibrium based their prosium on, lists 18 common side effects that are less severe, such as anxiety, trouble sleeping, feeling weak, and nervousness, but they list 68 less common yet more severe side effects, such as loss of memory, seizures, and thoughts of suicide. Often, the best route to a better mental health is a combination of changes, like pairing drugs with therapy and a healthy lifestyle. To further demonstrate the severe side effects of psychiatric drugs, recent research has found that at least 35 school shootings or school-related violence can be connected to withdrawals and consumption of drugs like Prozac. In fact, Eric Harris was on antidepressant Luvox when he and his accomplice killed 12 students, a teacher, and wounded 26 others before they killed themselves, creating the most memorable school shooting in Columbine, Colorado. Harvard-trained psychiatrist Dr. Peter R. Breggins insists, there have been overwhelming scientific evidence for decades correlating psychiatric prescribed drugs with violence, and concluded in his peer-reviewed article, SSRI drugs can be a factor in suicide, violence, and other forms of extreme abnormal behavior. This, of course, is a small percentage of the people who actually consume psychiatric drugs. However, Equilibrium's portrayal of individuals taking their version, prosium, confirms these odds. Again, take Brandt and the assumption that he does actually stick to his regimented dosing schedule. He represents those individuals whose response to medication exasperates their pre-existing violent behaviors. No one can say that psychiatric drugs are the cause of terrible acts. Humans have been killing humans long before we found ways to mess with our brain chemistry. However, violence peaks when a populace is compliant, shut off from the realities of their inaction. Bending to the will of an indoctrinating state makes citizens as guilty of their government's atrocities as the individuals who carry out and order violence on others, even if one's faith blinds him to this reality. And then, of course, I've got my works cited page. So there is my essay. You can see how I made bold the terms that I use in the paper and how I just kind of weave them in there naturally. And with a little bit of editing, this should be really easy for you guys to do as well. I hope. I'm going to try my best over the next few drafts to help you with those things. Notice also that I didn't talk about everything in the movie. That would be impossible. I chose to focus on emotions, on Prozac, and on an indoctrinating state, and how the three of those things work together to create one overall message, which I believe is one of the main points of the movie. Let me know if you guys have any comments or questions about the movie. I would really love to hear what your opinion is on this. But guys, this is all I got. that's it. Next class, we don't have class. You're just going to be turning in your next draft of your paper. And next week, I'm just going to be hanging out for the hour of class. If you guys have questions for me or concerns about your papers, or if you can also email me, I'm going to try to be as regular as I can in looking at that over the next week, because your final, not this coming Monday, but a week from Monday, it's going to be your final exam. So I'll have I'll make one last video for you guys explaining the final a little bit better in detail. I'll have an email too, so you don't have to watch the video, but the video will be there in case you would prefer to hear me say it out loud. So, alright. I hope you guys had a good semester with me, even though it got weird here at the end. Yeah, let me know if y'all need help. I look forward to reading your final drafts and getting you on to comp 2. Come see me if we get back to school physically. I'd love to see your smiling faces. Alright, bye guys.